All this week, it's No Bullying Week around the nation. Bullying No Way Week, 11 to 15th of August, and it matters. We need it. Why? Well, on a national scale, 59% of Australian students, that's 2.3 million students nationally, have been on the receiving end of bullying in the last year, with 20% experiencing it weekly. 30% of Australian 15-year-olds were bullied at least a few times a month, compared to the OECD average of 23%. The numbers just get worse and worse and worse. Australia ranks number 2 globally for school bullying. Only Latvia reports higher levels among 24 OECD countries, according to the 2022 PISA data released by the Australian Council for Educational Research. Today on the Happy Families podcast, we talk about 3 things that you can do if your child is being bullied. They are not the things you're used to hearing, believe me. And then we're going to talk about 3 things that you can do to prevent your child from bullying. Stay with us. Hello, welcome to the Happy Families podcast, real parenting solutions every day on Australia's most downloaded parenting podcast. All this week, we're going to be focused on bullying because it's No Bullying Week. Bullying no way right across the country. Kylie, we're going to kick off today's conversation by getting straight into it and having a look at 3 things that I've been thinking about to do if your child is being bullied. I'll share them with you and then you add your reactions. So the first thing that I want to suggest is that all too often I still hear parents say, when my child is being bullied, and this is what my dad used to teach me, if you ever get picked on, if you ever get bullied, you just turn around and punch them right in the nose. Fight back or toughen up. It's the stand up to bullies, toughen up narrative. And my suggestion today is that this is the worst advice ever, telling kids to stand up to bullies or fight back. And the reason for that is I see it as victim blaming. I think that it ignores power dynamics, and it can clearly, inevitably, I think, escalate dangerous situations. Are there stories where people fight back? Yeah, all the time. And we kind of get excited when somebody does that, but I just don't think it's healthy. Instead, our job is to validate our children's experience and focus on the system, focus on finding solutions within the school system. So work with the school, work with the head of year, the head of house, the deputy principal, the wellbeing leader, whoever it is, so that you can change the culture rather than asking your vulnerable child to fix failures within the system.
But I also think the bully wants a response. So as soon as you give them a response, then you're fueling the fire. You've actually given the fuel, the very fuel that they want.
It's kind of like social media on steroids, bullying. Anything that creates hostility or gets a crowd, the bully gets status from saying, look at how tough I am, look what I've done. There's just something about it that is endemic. It continues no matter how many conversations we have about it. Here's my second one. I think that we need to stop framing bullying, as a learning opportunity or a character building experience or a resilience thing. Some people think that if you can deal with the bully, that must mean that you're resilient. And what I think it does, I'm not a big fan of, I think that we've got too much conversation about trauma in our world today. But one thing that I do know is that bullying is a traumatic experience. And when you say just be resilient, it minimizes what I would call genuine trauma. And again, it keeps on shifting responsibility for the bullying onto the victim. I don't think it's your kid's job to bounce back from an unfair, abusive situation. It just doesn't seem right. Rather, we're supposed to be creating an environment where abuse doesn't exist and our children have the unconditional support that they need.
You talk about the idea that we talk too much about trauma. When we understand that trauma isn't what happened to us, it's our ability to process.
Yeah, how we respond
right?
to the
it's
thing.
It's all about processing and response to events in our lives. I actually can see how so many of the life experiences that our children go through and even us as adults go through become traumatic because we actually have not learnt the skills to be able to process challenging and difficult experiences in our lives. And when we're unable to process it, that becomes traumatic to us because we can't move forward. We're stuck.
This is true. However, I think the main point that I'm making here is that the bullying shouldn't be happening. I want perfect world solutions here, right? And the bullying shouldn't be happening, so we shouldn't have to process it because it shouldn't be happening. My interest is how do we get rid of the abuse, and telling the kids that they need to bounce back, they need to be resilient, they need to learn from this. works against them. Now, once it's happened, yes, processing is important and dealing with the trauma and healing from the horrible experience matters. We've got to be careful not to make too big of a deal about that and just guide our children gently through it. But fundamentally, if bullying is occurring, I would argue that almost always it's a result of inadequate structures within the system to help kids be safe from inappropriate interactions with their peers.
I love that you said that because I am watching what's happening for our 11-year-old daughter who's homeschooled. We've had experiences in the school system, and the challenges that she has in relationships within the school system have been profound. And now that she's at home, we've found this beautiful homeschooling group, and these kids literally from dawn till dusk can't get enough time together. They can't get enough time together, and there has not been a single altercation between them in over 12 months.
Yep. So when the system works, when you're in a need-supportive environment where you feel competent, you feel like you have a sense of control, and you feel like your relationships are good, you just don't get bullying.
I don't think I can articulate this enough. Watching our daughter have these positive experiences within peer relationships is mind-blowing to me, because in the school system, it's so hard to get that. Yeah,
we've had several kids who have been absolutely bullied. I won't go further, but we've had several kids who have been bullied because quite often, not always, but quite often the school environment simply can't support needs the same way that you can in a smaller environment. Let's move on to the third one because time's going to get away from us. I think that we've really got to challenge the punishment focus within schools when somebody is being a bully, when somebody has been bullying. Most anti-bullying programs fail, and I talked about this at the National Centre Against Bullying conference about 6 or 7 years ago now. Most anti-bullying programs fail because they rely on consequences and zero tolerance policies that don't address the root cause. And so essentially when there is a kid who's being a bully, then all the adults in the school start to bully the bully. And I'm using that term a little bit loosely, but fundamentally what we're doing to kids is we're saying you did the wrong thing and now we're going to make you pay a price. We're going to introduce a systemic, ongoing regime where we make you feel a consequence because of what you're doing. And it doesn't make things better. The idea that we're going to discipline the bully, if we can get beyond that and stop doing to, but rather start working with, we're going to get better outcomes. And so many parents demand when their child is being bullied that the school do something. And when they say do something, they mean, I want you to hurt the kid that hurt my kid, which doesn't lead to better outcomes. It just perpetuates problems within the system.
We talk regularly about the idea that when our kids are acting out and giving us the worst of what they have to offer, it's the time where we actually need to lean in.
Step up, yeah.
And, get close and intimate with them to understand the root cause of what's going on. These kids, they're kids. They're kids. And they are struggling with whatever's going on in their world. And it's really hard when your child is on the tail end of their bad behavior. That's hard. It's really hard. But recognizing and knowing that somebody needs to step up and actually help this child understand what it is that's actually the root cause. Because right now, they're acting out in anger. And we understand and know that anger is, kind of just masking everything else that goes underneath.
Yeah, it's that secondary emotion. After the break, we're going to talk about what we can do within the system to prevent your child from being a bully. Okay, Kylie, 3 things that we can do to prevent our children from being a bully. The first one that I want to highlight is this. I think we've got to stop rewarding dominance in disguise. What do I mean by that? A lot of parents inadvertently encourage bullying by celebrating what I'm going to put in scare quotes, leadership or confidence or competitiveness, but they don't examine whether or not that leadership or that competitiveness or that confidence involves putting others down. And so quite often we're saying, oh, my child is so strong or my child is winning, but it actually reinforces this zero-sum world view where somebody has to lose so that our child can succeed. The more the environment is competitive rather than collaborative and cooperative, the more that our children are asserting themselves at the expense of others. They might look like leaders. They might look like they're winning. It might look like they're being competitive. But for those who are on the receiving end, it just feels like bullying.
Number 2.
The second thing that will prevent kids from bullying, I think, is just examining our own power dynamics. I hate to say this, but kids who bully, there is an association between bullying behavior in children, bullying behavior at home, authoritarian parenting that emphasizes control and obedience, parents who honestly are just too tired. There was a recent Wall Street Journal article that talked about how parenting is going through a pendulum swing of mammoth proportions right now. Gentle parenting has been the fad for the last half a dozen years or so. It's been the craze. It's been everywhere. But the Wall Street Journal recently reported on something called Goodbye Gentle Parenting, Hello F Around and Find Out. Fuss around and find out, we'll call it. In other words, we're moving away from gentle parenting and moving back to hardcore parenting. In a week or two, we're going to do a podcast episode about why that parenting approach is a problem. But one thing that I will highlight right now is that when you have a fuss around and find out approach to parenting, a consequence-based, punishment-based approach to parenting, you're using your size advantage to make your child comply, and you're modeling precisely the kind of behavior that you're claiming to oppose when you say that you don't like bullying. Autonomy supportive or need supportive parenting involves collaborative engagement with your child, and that is going to prevent bullying more than any number of lectures about being kind.
And lucky last?
The third one is that we need to, this is kind of a funny one, and it might not make sense initially, but hear me out. I think we need to ditch the quote-unquote treat others the way you want to be treated platitude. And the reason for that is that a lot of kids who bully have internalized the harsh treatment that they've received previously, or they've internalized the idea that harsh treatment is normal. I'm never-endingly astounded at the casual brutality with which children treat one another, and they really do think that it's normal to mock each other, to punch each other, to shove each other, to call one another names, to throw slurs at one another, because they think that it's normal. Therefore, they think that it's okay to treat other people that way. It's not. We need to help kids to develop empathy by asking questions like, how do you think that person felt? And how would it have felt if somebody did that to you? And if they say, I'm fine with it, then that's where we go back to, well, based on the look on their face, I'm reading their response as different to yours. We've got to get past the superficiality of kindness and get into an authentic connection. So they're my three ways for preventing kids from bullying.
If I was going to add anything else to your list, I think it would be getting children outside of their own comfort zones and getting them helping in the community, helping other people who are less fortunate than them, who don't have the same, lifestyle that they experience, to recognize just the goodness that's in their lives and the joy, the absolute joy that comes from helping somebody else.
I love how I give all the fancy psychology answers and then you step in and say something beautiful like that. I don't know of any psychological research around this, but what I really do believe is that the best way to help children to be better kids is to get them involved in service and helping others. They get out of their own head. They get out of their own head space. They cease to have that entitled, privileged approach to life. They just recognize how lucky they are, how good their life is, and they want to treat people better. Such a great response.
We did a really simple experiment with our kids when they were much younger. We went and visited an elderly couple one night and we sang them some songs and shared an experience with them.
Yeah.
And our eldest daughter at the time was just about to turn 14 and she had a bit of angst. She had a bit of, pushback, and she watched as this grumpy old man, and he was a real grumpy old man, just sit in his chair and sob as we spent that time with him. And something in her shifted. And she said to me when we got home, she said, Mum, I think I want to go and spend more time with Betty and Arthur. From then on, every week she would catch the bus home from school to their house and play chicken scratch. I still don't even know what the game is.
Some sort of a game, yeah.
Card game. Yep. But she played it with them every week and it was the best time of her week. Like she absolutely loved it, looked forward to it. And the difference it made in that elderly couple's life was just profound.
Tomorrow on the Happy Families podcast, we talk about how to have a conversation with kids regarding terminally ill parents. It's a really tough one. And then later in the week, we get back to bullying no way with a couple of really important conversations with people who know more about bullying than pretty much anyone on the planet. That's all happening this week on the Happy Families podcast. Make sure you stay with us and join us again. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Mim Hammonds provides admin, research, and additional support. And if you'd like more info about making your family happier, we'd love for you to check out happyfamilies.com.au for more resources.